Okay. Says this thing has started. So, we are. If I could see stuff up here. There we go. We are going to talk about more NASCOURT today. Week 1 has concluded. So, we will go through some tweets. We will talk about it. I am not a legal expert, so you ask me anything legal, you will not get an answer. Or you'll get a horrible guess. Somewhere in there. Anyways, here to talk about NASCOURT. 2311 in Front Row Motorsports versus NASCAR. Antitrust monopoly accusations. Don't know what the official law is, but hey, let's get into it. Daniel Berry Sports Highlights. Hello. TVH6669. Hello. Matt Smith. David. How's it going? But, yes. I think this is all up. I think we're all good right now, but I hope you guys are all doing all right. I mean, obviously, we're not in the courtroom, so I hope you're enjoying the trial from afar. I don't know how you enjoy it. The juicy bits, honestly. I didn't really know where to start this thing, but Denny Hamlin put out this note on December 2nd, which was Tuesday, so the second day of the trial. This was late at night. He said, "My lawyers don't want me to tweet or X or whatever this is, but they are asleep. I just wanted to tell you that I love you guys and I will not stop fighting for you and what is right." Very kind message for Denny Hamlin, or from Denny Hamlin. By the way, we're going to go through my tweets again, the like tweets. Just because I like something does not mean I necessarily endorse it, as everyone puts in their Twitter descriptions. But likes are private now, so that's irrelevant. But yeah, just know that if I liked it, it's so I could have it in kind of a folder so I could actually use them for this stream. But very nice note from Denny Hamlin to make this point, to tell the public why he's fighting. Obviously, the jury can't do any research on it, or it could result in a mistrial, according to one report, is what the judge said. So the jury this weekend, please don't research this trial and have a mistrial. We can't go through this again. TVH, I'm just going to call you TVH. Not say all the numbers. No offense. If you want me to say the numbers, I guess I can, but for the most part, I'm just going to stick with TVH. TVH, I've been keeping up to date. Would it be possible to give a recap? Oh, boy. See, there's a lot of little details, and that's why I haven't done this since Monday, the first day. So we're essentially going Tuesday through now. We're going to go somewhat rapid, not like reading off tweets like blah, 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 but we're going to go decently fast. Let's just get into it. So Monday we had Denny Hamlin testify. We had, who else testified? Scott Prime, I think, maybe, but Denny Hamlin for sure testified. He got emotional on the stand. He was talking about, his background, his family, everything like that. So then we move on to Tuesday. So here we go. Tuesday, Denny Hamlin, I guess I could scroll up a little bit. Denny Hamlin continued on the witness stand this morning. This was Tuesday morning, with NASCAR cross-examining him. So at first you have Jeffrey Kessler, or whoever's on the 2311, the team side. They are talking to Denny Hamlin, asking him questions, and that's obviously going to be the layups. Those are going to be the easy, slow pitch, those are going to be the ones that he wants from his own side, because they're setting this up to build their case. Well, when you get cross-examined by the other side, that's when it's going to get a little bit more difficult. That's when it's going to get a little bit more intense in these situations. And I think from what I read is that the Denny Hamlin cross-examination did get a little bit intense. Not like yelling or throwing chairs or whatever, but just the topics at hand. So NASCAR's lawyer, Lawrence Buterman. Lawrence, if you're watching this, sorry if I mispronounced your name, asked Hamlin if the public couldn't trust his words because Hamlin said he sometimes used NASCAR talking points in public. Hamlin said that's nonsense. So this has been a common theme from everything you read about this lawsuit. NASCAR really is hammering home this whole, the other side has said positive things about us in the past, or said we did a good job at this. We'll get to Michael Jordan's testimony here in a minute, but they were talking to Michael Jordan, and they were like, "Hey, did you know, or you're aware that NASCAR built Talladega Super Speedway?" And it was just kind of like, if that's it, like what? What does that have to do with anything? Unless there's more context that I'm missing, like what does that have to do with anything? So NASCAR and their lawyers and their arguments, from what I've read, once again, I'm missing a lot of stuff here. It just seems like the lawyers are really just pushing home this, well, NASCAR's made a lot of great stuff, and the people on the other side of the courtroom have acknowledged that. Denny Hamlin has used the talking points, as Denny Hamlin has said. He's praised the car. He's praised NASCAR leadership in certain situations. He's praised the racing at certain tracks. Michael Jordan has praised the charter system itself, not necessarily the deal that was put in place last year, but he has praised the system itself and what it brings to NASCAR, the ownership and all of that stuff. They've really been trying to make that a main point. Once again, I'm not a legal expert. There's got to be some legal technicality here that I'm missing, but if you're trying to counter argue, or you're trying to argue against being a monopoly and antitrust stuff, why are you just bringing up old quotes of them saying you did good at something that one time, or you built something 60 years ago? Like, from my point of view, I don't fully understand it. Maybe the only explanation I could think is maybe trying to discredit the witnesses, discredit Denny Hamlin when he says NASCAR sucks and the charter deal was a gun to our head. He didn't say that directly, but you get the gist. They're trying to discredit him because they're saying, hey, he said that then, but a few years before that, he was saying, hey, the charter system's great, and NASCAR did a great job with this thing. Maybe that's the whole tactic there, but I did not see that, Micah. I've been just scrolling Twitter, looking at lawsuit stuff and the occasional, like, for example, I apologize. Wednesday was a busy day, and Chris Gabehart is reportedly leaving Joe Gibbs Racing. That's a very big deal. He was Denny Hamlin's crew chief, and then he was in a competition role, and there was some other bit of news I missed. Sorry. My bad. As I said, Wednesday was just a really busy day for me. I couldn't get to it. So, this has nothing to do with the lawsuit. As I said, we're looking at my Twitter likes. So, it's going to get funny. Like, the buyouts here. That's million, billion, trillion. So, 6 trillion Vietnamese dong. All right. NASCAR external counsel Lawrence Butterman said 2311 and Front Row Motorsports are asking for $205 million in damages. That this would be 900% return of investment from what 2311 has invested, and grilled Denny Hamlin about whether that is a fair ROI. Hamlin also confirmed his salary is around $14 million annually. So yes, we have gotten some big numbers. I put that in the title of the stream. Some big numbers have been revealed in this whole thing. NASCAR driver contracts are usually kept under wraps. Like, you'll hear, oh, it's a multi-year deal, or oh, it's a deal through 2026, and it, or it's a one-year extension, like things like that. We know approximately the year or exactly the year, but we don't know the figures. Now, every once in a while, back 20 years ago, you'd get the estimates. Dale Earnhardt Jr. is getting $30 million. Jeff Gordon's getting $30 million. Jimmy Johnson's getting 30. And then, Carl Edwards is getting $15 million. Stuff like that. Whereas you don't see those numbers a lot anymore. You don't see how much the drivers are making. These contracts are extremely private. Well, when you're under oath, I think you have to say it, because if you plead the fifth, that implies that something's incriminating. Is Denny Hamlin's salary incriminating? I don't think so. So $14 million is what Denny Hamlin is making. He's one of the top tier drivers in NASCAR, obviously. He is reaching the end of his career. We know that. But he still won 6 races this season, finished second, third in the points, whatever it was. So he's still getting a good chunk of money. $14 million. That'd be nice. $14 million a year. Anywho, I just thought that was a neat little number. As for the damages, I don't know how they estimate that. I'm sure a good chunk of that is lawyer fees, because the lawyers get a Ton of money. Lawyers. There's a reason there's so many jokes about them. No offense if you're a lawyer. I'm sure plenty of you are great people, but you guys do make a lot of money. Jamie, welcome. Yes, Jamie, you were there. I hope you took some cool pictures and videos and put them on the line, as they say. Michael Massey, that opening part of the day was spicy to say the least. 2311's side completed their questioning of Hamlin, but then the cross-examination began. A lot of questions about the team's spending and whether he and the team were reckless with money. So yes, this was another point that NASCAR brought up. And honestly, as I said, from a neutral, from an outsider standpoint, it's a fair point. A lot of the numbers that 2311 and Front Row have been using is like how much on average did the team spend per year, or how much on average a team spends per car. And they were bringing up like office Christmas parties, like how much was 2311 spending, how much are they spending on this part, that part, like these little corners of the shop, how much do they spend on Airspeed, their new shop. So obviously Denny Hamlin's got to defend that. He's got to say, this is why we did this is why we did that. Trying to think of what else, but it's a valid counter from NASCAR. I would say, once again, I'm not a legal expert. From a commoner's point of view, I'd say, hey, NASCAR, that's a fair grilling. I don't know. Can I say that? Should I say that? And then this is a good comparison. So F1 drivers make a lot of money. Max Verstappen's getting $65 million a year, and I'm pretty sure that's just his base like driver salary. I don't even know if that includes endorsements, if that includes personal sponsorships, that his sim racing and his team that he owns. That's a lot of money. Hamilton's getting $60 million a year. I'm gonna make the joke. Lewis Hamilton's getting $60 million a year to not score a podium this season. He's an all-time great driver. Over the years, he has deserved every dime of that because he keeps winning. But this year, oh my goodness, has it gone wrong. Leclerc's getting 34. Alonso and Norris are getting 20. Russell 15. Then there's Denny Hamlin. He's getting more than Gasly, Sainz, and let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He's getting more than over half the F1 grid. Good for him. Good for you, Denny. Okay, here we go. Here's some more numbers. As I said, big numbers. Ooh, that's cool, Jamie. There's been some funny videos of Michael Jordan. Like, someone did his theme song when he played for the Bulls as he walked into courtroom today. What else? Someone like asked him how he's doing, like if he's ready to testify. He made a joke at Bob Pockrass, and he asked him if he worked for NASCAR. I think it was a joke. Maybe he just doesn't know that Bob's a reporter for Fox, but that was funny. Anyways, back to the big numbers. As I said, big numbers are being revealed in this thing, guys. I mean, even the Wi-Fi is a big number for Wi-Fi. The amount of money they have to pay for Wi-Fi every week at the track is absurd. Makes me appreciate Wi-Fi at the track a lot more. Among some of Hamlin's financial revelations, we already know that number. As of 2024, he has put $10.74 million into 2311, but through loans, he is on the hook for $45 million total. Denny Hamlin and Michael Jordan own the shop, and 2311 pays $1 million a year in rent. The shop cost $35 million to build. That is a big number. If you got, in fact, this is the beauty of the second screen. I can do a quick Google, and I can pull up this race shop. No, I look up airspeed, and it's a bunch of tachometers, I think is what it is, for planes. No, okay, so this is a state-of-the-art, brand new, let's see, facility that's been built in the last couple of years, because I think they rented out someone's old facility. And so airspeed, you can see it right here. It's all fancy. You can see cars in here. That car is now in possession of Bubba Wallace. Fun fact. I was there for that. That was cool. So, do you just click on every tab here? So yeah, and then you can see the garage or the shop where they work on the cars, which that's pretty neat. I think you can like walk around the top. Once again, I've never been there. They got some hardware. The engine room. That's pretty cool. the driveline room. That's pretty cool. And partner exploration. I was looking more for an outside. Oh, here we go. So yeah, you can kind of just do some laps, and there's the bathrooms. That's always an important part. But yeah, it's some pretty cool. It's a pretty cool facility. I'm gonna pull up that picture right here. So yeah, that's a state-of-the-art facility, guys. That's a lot of money that was poured into that, and we now know the number: $35 million. Oh man, I wish Matt Smith. I missed that. I missed it, but I saw Jeff Gluck was on SportsCenter. I'm waiting for like SportsCenter's YouTube to put it up or something, or like Twitter, but SportsCenter just hasn't. They're too busy talking about Stephen A. Smith and whatever he wants to yap about these days. Anyways, we don't need a rant about that today. Yeah, no, NASCAR, they've been on ESPN, they've been on SportsCenter. So this is another thing I put in the title. I think we kind of burst out. Did I put it? I don't think I did. Never mind. Anyways, we have finally started to break out of the NASCAR world. Like, this, for the most part, has been a NASCAR thing. Even though Michael Jordan's involved and everyone knows who Michael Jordan is, no one has really been paying attention outside of local Charlotte, North Carolina outlets and maybe a couple of other people. But it's finally starting to break through. CBS, I think their morning show talked about it a couple mornings ago. Obviously, SportsCenter's now talking about it. ESPN is talking about it. I was on Twitter earlier today, and Jordan Bianchi's video went viral on there. A bunch of big NBA accounts that post everything happening in the NBA world are starting to pick up on it. And so everyone's kind of aware now that, like, Michael Jordan is suing NASCAR. Like, this is a really, really big deal that this is happening. And it's finally, as I said, it has burst into the outside world. Everyone, or a lot more people, know about it today than they did even 4 or 5 days ago when this trial started. That's a lot of eyeballs on you, NASCAR. That's a lot of pressure on you. And, you know, there were some people who were not aware of the case. They're not aware of the situation. They're like, Michael Jordan's getting sued by NASCAR. What? What did he do? Reverse it. Flip that thing around. So, it's finally starting to kind of get out. Like, I got a text today from a friend who said, wait, why is Michael Jordan in a lawsuit with NASCAR? Guy doesn't know much about NASCAR. And I was like, oh, that's so out of nowhere. But hey, other morning I was at the breakfast with my grandpa and uncle. We started talking about it. Like, it's starting to break through into the big world. So it's, yeah. Anyways. Trey's Rail Fanning says NASCAR's dead, skull emoji. I don't know. I have no idea how you know what side is winning. From the outside view, I would say after the first couple days, it seemed like 23-11 and Front Row had an advantage, but I don't even know how you put, like, favoritism on either. Like, oh, this side's winning. Oh, this side's winning. But just the way the testimony, like, I think the Bob Jenkins testimony, from what I've read, has been, like, very in favor of NASCAR, or the teams, just because the NASCAR attorney kind of messed up a couple times and asked some questions he wasn't supposed to ask, and he got yelled at by the judge or something. But then today, yesterday or today, I can't remember which day, seemed like it leaned a little bit more NASCAR, but as I said, I don't really know how you predict who's going to win this thing, unless it's like a slam dunk. There's DNA evidence, which in this case, there's not going to be DNA evidence. If there is, we have taken a wild, wild turn. Okay, so here we go. Intense, continuous cross-examination of Denny Hamlin. He is fired back at NASCAR's attorneys in multiple instances under cross. Unclear how it is playing with the jury. That is a big part of this thing. You could think this is back to the point of who's winning. You could think one side is winning. You could think another side is winning. But what if the jury has like a complete opposite view as you, the viewer? Like, you're watching Denny Hamlin up on the stand, and you're thinking, wow, he's making some really good points. But if he's doing it aggressively, like he's screaming, he's throwing his arms, and the jury's like, ooh, this guy's crazy. Well, then Denny Hamlin, despite him seemingly making good points, if he's not presenting it well, the jury might not like him. I don't know. So you also got to think about that. This isn't like a first person to 50 points, or there's like 4 quarters in a game, or you're going to lap 267. This is a pretty, you don't know what's going to happen here. All right, here we go. Matt Weaver. He did some great recaps on here. He writes it up. It's great. Court is taking a briefer. He says this is still Tuesday, I think. Yeah, still Tuesday. Lawrence Butterman, one of NASCAR's antitrust defense lawyers, has begun a cross-examination. Consistently. Yeah, so this is what I was talking about earlier. Trying to paint Hamlin as like inconsistent or unreliable. Let's see here. Yeah, okay, here's some direct points. So Denny Hamlin went on Kenny Wallace's YouTube thing, and he praised the schedule innovation and the reduced barrier to entry of the next-gen car, which countered earlier claims on the stand where Denny Hamlin said the next-gen car cost about $400,000 instead of the $250,000 they were promised, contributing to financial burden. Hamlin said he did due diligence before founding 2311, that Joe Gibbs Racing was against the next gen, but that it had the possibility of reducing cost. If the cost stayed the same, that would reduce workforce. On the Full Speed documentary, I think that's the Netflix thing, Hamlin said the next gen leveled competition. He told Wallace the car was a net positive for the sport. Hamlin said that was a NASCAR talking point, and that everyone in the sport knows that if you say something negative, someone from leadership calls you. We are going to get a direct reference to this later. There was a former, I think, team employee who got, anyways. Okay, so then Butterman asks him, did you just say we can't take your word seriously? Hamlin says that's nonsense. Hi, Cloudy341 Blade. We're talking about your favorite driver here. And favorite court person, maybe? Have they brought up Bill France? Well, I guess Bill France did find this thing. So I guess they have reference. I mean, Talladega being built in 1969 got brought up in this thing. So, I'm sure Jim France has been brought up. This is a valid point. If Michael says this is stupid, I'm done, then I'm done. I mean, yeah, if Denny Hamlin, he's got a lot of help financially from Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan, I think it's safe to say Michael Jordan has a lot of money. Whether it's, ironically, the NBA playing days, he got a good chunk of cash, don't get me wrong, but it's nothing compared to his Nike deal. Nothing compared to his Nike deal. Whew. Denny Hamlin, I thought this was an interesting note. Hamlin said they were one sponsor away from being in the red, being in the minus. Right now, they're just in the plus because they have enough sponsors because of the Jordan appeal. But, hey. Something about emails. It's their job to keep us in check. Because there were some texts when Michael Jordan was considering teaming up with Denny Hamlin to make 2311. There were some texts from Curtis Polk and Gene Mason, I guess, to someone else in MJ's circle. And there were some texts saying, oh, this guy, he's not as, trustworthy, or, he spends a lot of money. Like, this isn't going to go well. And, those texts came out and everyone was like, oh, Denny, they betrayed you. Or not everyone. That's NASCAR's counter argument, I guess. So, that's a fair response. It's their job to keep us in check. See, dude, when Curtis Polk gets on that stand, I think that's going to be the most intense and violent, because Curtis Polk, from everything that I've read on him, is that he is very intense, and that he's very, especially in this whole process, that he's been very vocal. He does not, he lets you know what he's thinking, and he does it in a very intense way. So once he gets up on that stand, that's going to be interesting. So this is what I was talking about earlier. Why does 2311 spend so much on holiday parties? We take care of our people. Denny was asked what he makes. They made an objection. That's a fair point. Denny is at the top of his game. He's 44 years old, and he almost won the championship, had 6 wins this year. Butterman says Denny Hamlin just wants a fair deal and that his expert will testify on the damage number. So I guess there's an expert that somehow figures out that that's the number on damages. Don't know how this expert comes up with that number, but all right. Cool. Epic. All right, next tweet. Random. I don't want to get copywritten. All right. So, okay, now we're getting to some of the not nonsense, some of the nasty of September 2024 when that supposed last deal came in, the take it or leave it deal. This is when NASCAR supposedly sent out a 6 p.m. deadline, which they then extended to midnight, and I think they sent it at like 4 p.m. So they gave a very small window, and it was like a 200-page document, something insane. Let's see here. Oh, Jim France. Yeah, we'll talk about Jim here in a bit. If Richard Childress takes the stand, we don't know if he will, but it's possible. Heather Gibbs. I don't know about that, Cloudy 341 Blade. I don't think this thing's over until the hammer, the gavel gets hit on the table at the end of this thing. Well, he was 44 when he was racing. Sorry, my bad, I guess, maybe. So this is how Denny Hamlin learned about the deadline. He was at his daughter's school when NASCAR gave the 6 p.m. deadline to sign the agreement, which was eventually extended to midnight. I knew what they did was wrong. How could they call it and tell us to take it or leave it? After conferring with Polk and Jordan, 2311 Racing sent back 8 points. 8. To change for them to sign the agreement in which they were told negotiations are closed. Oh, man, that is... And we're going to get to the Heather Gibbs quotes here in a bit. She uses some more intense words. Well, this might be a direct quote, but she uses the gun-to-head comparison. Oh, there we go. So Curtis Polk was the first one to suggest legal action. He wants to grow the sport. All right, so this is an interesting note. Bubba brought in $17.5 million in his own personal sponsorship. Charter system provided a guaranteed starting spot, that's another fair point. NASCAR told us that, or we were told by NASCAR, next gen would save teams 40%. What was sold is not what actually happened. So that is another thing that angered them. Denny Hamlin's testimony was 3.5 hours, emotionally charged, extremely bitter. Hamlin's anger towards NASCAR was on full display. Once again, we're on Tuesday. Hamlin's testimony completed. He repeatedly said documents don't lie. That's been like his main point the entire thing. Because, you're bringing up old quotes and, you contradict yourself in 2021 as opposed to 2024. Like, what's up with that? Well, Hamlin has repeatedly said documents don't lie. Oh boy, these are some non-NASCAR likes here. Okay, here we go. So, a bit of a break, but Jeffrey Kessler has NASCAR Executive Vice President and Chief Strategy Officer Scott Prime on the witness stand. This was from everything I've read on this was not the greatest for NASCAR. Jamie, I have no idea. I got no idea. I think Richard Childress' reasoning for signing the agreement was because he had too many employees and he couldn't let them down or he couldn't let them go. He had to sign it for them. I think that was his initial reasoning back in 2024. So Kessler is asking questions about any NASCAR efforts or preemptive attempts to thwart a breakaway competitor series. Prime says Project Gold Codes was a contingency plan and that locking up Speedway Motorsports tracks was if teams did something different. Currently, Prime is being asked about his brainstorming about considering a NASCAR partnership with Saudi Investment Fund in advance of charter negotiations as a means to get ahead of a competitor series. This is all related to NASCAR, watching the Live PGA dynamic unfold. The break came in the middle of that, so the full picture is being painted. Obviously, so we have the PGA, that's the main golf league over here in the US of A, and they even go over and they do the British Open, and I'm sure they go to other foreign countries, but then the Live popped up. The Live was this newer concept. They go all over the world. I think they only play 3 rounds as opposed to 4. They let you wear shorts. They let you play music in the background. It's a lot more casual than proper PGA professional golf, and it was Saudi funded. So much money was poured into that thing. The paychecks for the golfers was insane, even compared to the PGA guys who make a huge, huge number if you win like the Masters. So, yeah, it's getting the Saudis involved. Obviously, they have a lot of money. I don't know what else to say on that. The Project Gold Codes, I think, was that the nuclear option? There's some terminology. I think it's gold codes. If it's something else, I'll let you know later. I think Project Gold Codes was essentially NASCAR's plan if the teams broke off or if the teams didn't sign the deal. NASCAR was going to take everything in-house. They were going to build the cars themselves. They were going to pay the teams themselves. They were going to pay the drivers themselves. They were going to fund everything. They were going to make it happen themselves without teams on the outside, I think. We'll get into the SRX here in a bit because the SRX is tweeting again, which is really funny. So yeah, this is what I was talking about. Michael Massey said the general vibe of the Scott Prime testimony feels like it did not go well for NASCAR. Turns out the chief strategy officer gets paid $400,000 to staple papers and not know anything about any actual strategy. Either that or, he wasn't actually being honest in the stand. That's not exactly a good look if you're NASCAR. This from Dalton Hopkins. Second recess, Scott Prime, Chief Strategy Officer. Sound stand. Keynotes. Here we go. Here's what we want. Locking up SMI. This has also been another heavy point that's been hit. So there's something in the contract with SMI regarding other series not competing there. And there's like an exception for IndyCar because IndyCar has gone to Nashville Super Speedway. They've gone to Texas Motor Speedway. They've gone to other SMI tracks that I can't think of off the top of my head. But actually, ironically enough, they've gone to less and less over the... They don't even go to TMS anymore. It's like 15 minutes for me. They haven't been there since like 2022. Anywho, back to the main point. There's like a clause in SMI's contract with NASCAR that says you cannot have a similar series or a stock car series or like another series without our permission at your track. Obviously, NASCAR is the main series that goes to almost all of the SMI tracks, and that is the moneymaker for a lot of the SMI tracks because think about it. Bristol, outside of that, they got some short track stuff they do. Texas doesn't even do anything anymore outside of NASCAR. Charlotte, I don't even know what they do outside of NASCAR. The summer shootout or whatever it's called. We could go down the list. We don't need to. But yeah, so obviously this would be SRX would come into the conversation there when they were kind of reviving. If they wanted to go to a short track, if they wanted to go to Bristol, if they wanted to go to Dover, if they wanted to go to New Hampshire, like tracks like that, obviously that's when it gets a little bit complicated. So yeah. Anyways, Kessler brought up further email evidence that discussions were being made by NASCAR leadership comparing the F1 business model or the Concord Agreement to NASCAR's charter agreements. F1 shares 50% of revenue with its 10 teams. NASCAR shares roughly 30%. Obviously, NASCAR has more teams it has to share with. Prime reportedly emailed Steve O'Donnell and wrote, quote, between us, they have a point on the industry revenue splits regarding the F1 comparison. An email from O'Donnell displayed some concern that Liberty would come in and help NASCAR or help teams start another series. NASCAR supposedly wargamed that Liberty could start a series of 20 cars between 10 teams and would share 50% of its revenue like it does in F1. Now, I don't know if there was any legitimacy to this. Maybe like when you're in an industry, when you're in a business, when you're in PR, whatever, you have to think of worst case scenarios every which direction, and you have to think like the most extreme worst. This would be a most extreme worst, I think. So maybe there was not actual rumblings of it. Maybe there were not actual rumors, but they had to plan for it. But maybe there were. Maybe there were actually rumors that said, hey, if NASCAR doesn't sign this deal, Liberty Media is going to pick this up and all these teams are going to jump over to Liberty Media. There's going to be a split. It's going to be ugly. It's going to be IndyCar all over again. I don't know, but anyways, we already talked about the Live and the PGA and all that fun stuff. The Pop-Tart Bowl. Yeah. Okay. Day 2 concluded. Okay, so now we're on to day 3. I thought this was funny. Well, this is obviously irrelevant now. Other people care now, but this was a good point at the time. Okay, here we go. Update for Scott Prime examination. Keynotes. NASCAR drafted risks regarding the SRX series, which included the possibility that NASCAR drivers and teams follow it as a way to break away from NASCAR. Their mitigation was that NASCAR was protected by the charter agreement because it prevented team owners from participating in the new stock car series. It was called the goodwill provision. Kessler pointed out evidence that SMI had interest in hosting SRX events, but an agreement between SMI and NASCAR called the sanction provision prevented them from doing so. Prime was asked by Kessler how much he is compensated, to which he answered $400,000. So far, Prime has been very conservative in how he has answered questions. So, on to this point, the goodwill provision, I'm pretty sure there's something in the charter agreement, correct me if I'm wrong, that says if you leave NASCAR, if you let go of your charter, if you sell whatever it is, you cannot go to another competing series for a year after that. You have to give it 12 months, a calendar year. I think that's it. As for the SRX, we already kind of talked about SRX. They can't go because of all these other things, or these provisions, and that NASCAR was scared of it. Once again, I don't understand why NASCAR was so scared of SRX. SRX was a fun, cool new concept. It had Ray Evernham and Tony Stewart behind it, so it had some big names. You know, they all had their cars in-house, I'm pretty sure, but they went to local short tracks. They were midweek. They were on a broadcast company that wasn't NASCAR related. Like, it's not like they were on Sunday afternoon on NBC when it was the Fox portion of the NASCAR schedule, going head to head and trying to poach drivers. Now, yes, drivers like Chase Elliott, Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin, Brad Keselowski, and ex-drivers like Bill Elliott, Tony Stewart all went and raced in SRX. Yes, that's true. That's accurate. But this was in the middle of the week. That did not conflict with NASCAR. They never missed a race. They never missed a practice session for NASCAR to go do SRX. So once again, I understand NASCAR has to cover itself. They don't want to potentially lose their big stars, their big drivers to another series. They need to protect themselves. I think that is a fair assessment. But the SRX, never once in the 3-4 years of its existence did I sit there and watch it and think, oh yeah, this is going to take over NASCAR one day. Yeah, ha, 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 evil laughter. Never thought that. I thought it was a good alternative, and it was a good racing fix, a good racing fill in the middle of the week when there is no NASCAR. So quite the opposite. I felt like it was filling in the racing void when NASCAR wasn't going. And also, they didn't even race a full season. As Cloudy 341 Blade here says, they only had like 7 races and they were all during the summer months, which is kind of when NASCAR gets stale, if we're being honest. It's during the summer months. So I'm sure they got their reasons, but I don't understand why NASCAR was so scared and rattled and intimidated by SRX. Javier. Owner points and championship provisionals was great. Why did they get rid of him almost 10 years ago? No idea. Wish I could tell you. Yeah, that happens. That was also back a long time ago, Jamie. Cloudy 341. I get what you're saying, but it's a little bit of a stretch, possibly. Like, if NASCAR's going, like, those texts where O'Donnell or Phelps or one of the NASCAR executives was saying, like, oh, the SRX car is a box and they don't have safer barriers, they're going to get themselves hurt, and then Kurt Busch gets hurt, then, yeah, in that case, that was not great. Anyways. There is some question of how deep into team finance they could go with. Yeah, okay. So here we go. 2311 attorney Jeffrey Kessler asked Scott Prime at one point to reveal. Okay, cool. All right. The math isn't math. Okay, so this is another point. This trial was supposed to be like 2 weeks max, I'm pretty sure. So that would be a week from today, technically. I think that's how that math works. It was supposed to be a 10 to 14 day trial, so either today or a week from Monday. It's not seeming like that. It took us 3 days to get through 3 testimonies. 3.5 days to get through 3 testimonies. Now, we knocked out a couple of quick ones today with Heather Gibbs, Michael Jordan, but they're going very slowly. And in fact, Judge Bell said that we need to pick up the pace here, or he's going to start putting like a shot clock on it or something. I can't remember the terminology. There's a clock you can put on these things. So theoretically, this will not be over next week. This is more than likely going to roll into the following week. What was Monday, the 1st? I think Monday was the 1st, so the 8th, 15th. This could roll into the week of the 15th. How deep into the week of the 15th? I don't know. Will this get to Christmas? Oh, Lord knows. I hope not. That would be a little bit too chaotic. But he wants to speed this process up. He wants to get this thing over out of respect for the jury, who are taking times out of their lives for this thing. And technically they're being paid, but it's not a lot. So you just got to remember, theoretically, this thing is supposed to be done by the end of the week next week or early the week of the 15th, like that Monday. It's supposed to be over. We are not seeming like we're going to get to that. That is not going to be the case. So they either got to pick up the pace or they're going to start putting clocks on this thing. Maybe the funniest part of the day, this is once again from Tuesday, Denny Hamlin about a meeting with Steve Phelps. I was told by Steve Phelps that this would be a new paradigm, I think I pronounced that right, for team economics. The first thing I did was look up what that meant. Michael Jordan for NASCAR commissioner. Bring back the provisionals. Dragon Zord 18. Okay. Are we going to ignore how O'Donnell... We're going to get to that, Cloudy. We're going to get to that. We're going in order. We're on Tuesday. Speaking of picking up the pace, I got to pick up the pace here. I got to eat dinner and watch UNT football potentially get into the playoffs. Paradigm. Guess I'm illiterate. My bad. NASCAR's been sending out these long recaps. Yeah, we're not going to read all that right now. We don't have time. Sorry. UNT's ranked right now, so that's cool. Texas is going to miss the playoffs. That sucks. We're going to go through this account. This is Shannon McMinamy. I think I pronounced that right. She's been on the Gluck Bianchi podcast a few times now. She's a lawyer, and she knows this stuff. So, anyways, they'll be calling Richard Childress. There will also be another team representative called that apparently is a supporter of the charter system, but has lost a lot of money under it. Okay, that's a neat little note. Okay, so here's what I'm talking about. So at one point, Hamlin said he spoke rosy about NASCAR in public. Be quiet, Gronk. I don't... Leave. Nobody wants you. Anyways, I'm going to get in trouble for that probably. In between the lanes, hi. They're given talking points, right? That's what Denny Hamlin's saying. And it's called to the holler if he says anything negative. The North Korea memes continue. He was then asked if that's what we already went over that. So this is from This is from a former employee, I think, of a team in 2012. Once again, I got to confirm this information, but supposedly, if this is a former member of a team, this is kind of wild here. It says, Emily says, in 2012, I posted a tweet saying I didn't understand the All-Star race format, and within 2 hours, my team owner called me in to tell me they got a call from NASCAR threatening to fine me and the team for my comment. Yes, they silence, intimidate, and censor industry members. If this is the case, that is wild. If a 19-year-old intern, brand new to the industry, and was an intimidated kid, said, I don't understand the format of the All-Star race, which, by the way, the All-Star race format has been extremely confusing over the years. Even people within don't know what's going on sometimes. It's like 2021, I was at the race, had no idea what was going on. If this is true, wild. That is just absolutely insane. But she then notes, the team I worked for fully had her back. They were the best, and I love that team/job. JTGD forever. JTG Doherty. We already went over this tweet from Denny. The Thunder are really good this year, guys. Really good. Once again, UNT. Cadillac F1 teams announcing their livery. Super Bowl Sunday, so that's exciting. All right, I think we're on to Wednesday now. Okay. If there's anything else interesting, we're speed running. Or not speed running. We got 40-ish minutes. So here we go. I think this is funny. So Kessler says, because you're a monopoly, yes? And then Prime responds, we are the premier stock car series. Kessler, because there's no other one? Prime. Premier means there's only one of them. Yes. Okay, so intellectual property has been a big talk of this thing too. Apparently the teams had more intellectual property protections and rights and stuff in the Gen 6. But NASCAR has more rights now with the Gen 7, I think, if I remember that right, if I'm reading that right. The sanction agreement. So they were freaking out that teams weren't going to sign the charter agreement, and first come, first serve. So there was a situation where they were saying, hey, what if we only had 32 charters, and the first 32 teams to sign it, they get the charter. So the first teams to sign within 32. So if you were holding out for a charter and you were the 33rd team to sign, tough luck for you, I think, right? Combine the above two. So this is like their backup plan, I guess. Okay, so Project Gold Coast was the nuclear option. This was the we're taking everything in-house option. That's indeed what Gold Codes are. Go back to open teams so they could just scrap the charter system altogether, which would then piss everyone off, which would then probably result in this if I had to guess, but I don't know. Kessler points out that only a monopolist can tell someone to take their offer or no longer be in the business. Prime responded by saying the teams could go race at other tracks, to which Kessler asked if they could be a premier stock car series at tracks other than super speedways. Prime responded NASCAR didn't have any super speedways when it first started. Kessler said, I'm talking about today, not 1946. I think the year's technically... technically the year's wrong, but his point's valid. We're talking about 2025 and beyond. So the season's over. 2026 and beyond. Why are we referencing 1946? 1948, whatever year. You guys get the point. That's a valid point. Like, if NASCAR has all the exclusive rights to all the big tracks, all the SMI tracks, all the NASCAR-owned tracks, Talladega, Daytona, Texas, Vegas, Michigan, etc., well, a competing series can't race. So if NASCAR's terms and deal isn't fair and the teams want to go race elsewhere, they can't. They don't have any other options. There's not another series out there, first of all. And also, even if there was another series formed, they can't go race anywhere unless they build their own tracks, which is a lot of money. So Kessler brought up an email from Prime to Steve Phelps after presenting the proposed charter agreement to Jim France. Prime and Steve O'Donnell proposed an agreement that they believed would have satisfied the teams, and according to the email, France disagreed with to it. So this has been another kind of perspective, is that it's been Jim France who has been very stubborn in this, and that some of the executives and some of the texts do actually back up. While there have been some bad and distasteful texts from O'Donnell, Phelps, Prime, etc., Herbst, all those people, there have been some evidence and some texts of them saying, why don't we just give the teams what they want, or give the teams at least a better deal similar to what they're asking? Sure, we don't go all the way on their side, but we at least meet in the middle. Let's be a little bit more realistic. And sometimes it seems like Jim France, Iron Fist, says no. So, don't know. Could be true, could be not. I really don't know, but there's so much to process from this thing. Kessler presented an email from Prime regarding the charter agreements being signed on September 6th. This is back in 2024. About the final draft being sent out at 5 p.m. It was 5 p.m. I said 4 p.m. earlier. I was a little bit too optimistic. Needing to be signed by midnight. He's quoted as writing, "Don't want to put a gun to their head unless that's what they want." That analogy gets used in trial by Heather Gibbs. The gun to the head. I remember that was used back when this first thing went down. I can't remember who said it. One of the executives, team owners, said that they felt like there was a gun to their head. Well, it's officially been testified in court by Heather Gibbs that this was the case scenario. Oh, here we go. Yes, the Wi-Fi numbers. Yay. Okay. Expensive Wi-Fi. So, here is what 2311 says it paid to NASCAR last year, including $168,000 on internet and data analytics. Whew. Oh my goodness. That just spiked my blood pressure and heart rate just thinking about paying $168,000. So here we go. Entry fees. Okay, entry fees, that's fair. You know, if you're going to race in our series, we need some money out of this thing. An entry fee, that's fair. Licensing fees. Yeah, that's fair. I've been told about licensing fees, and not even just with the teams, with like intellectual property and stuff. Like you got to have licensing fees for photos and stuff. I got to talk to you about that once, and yeah, it's a fair point. Internet and data analytics. $168,000. I don't know what that fully means, but internet, like Wi-Fi, I think. Now, I understand that these teams have a lot of computers. They have a lot of technology. They got to hook up to the internet in order to make their charts go and their calculators go. That's a lot of money. That stresses me out. And then the SMT analytics, that's the SMT data. But now it's in-house with NASCAR, so I don't know how much they pay, but that's a lot of money too. Whew. Dude, Juice Kiffin, that's a hilarious saga. Let's see. All right, so now Bob Jenkins. We're on to Bob Jenkins. Bob Jenkins is the owner of Front Row Motorsports. Yeah. Okay, so this is some other things. This is like NASCAR lost a bunch of money on Chicago. They lost a bunch of money on the LA Coliseum. They lost a bunch of money on Mexico, other projects. So they lost approximately $50 million over 3 years on the Chicago street race. So Kessler turned to Prime's lockup Speedway Motorsports potential strategy, to which Prime testified earlier that it was simply about scheduling and that for TNT, they wanted to know that they would have the Atlanta race on their slate. So here's the part that confuses me a bit. I'm already extremely confused, guys. But so they wanted to lock up SMI, right? A lot of their tracks are SMI. A lot of the tracks they've had for a long time, and a lot of good racing is put on at SMI facilities. Like they need to lock up SMI in some sort of contract to keep with NASCAR. Well, TNT TV wants Atlanta. What does that have to do with NASCAR preventing other series from racing at Atlanta? If IndyCar wants to race at Atlanta, or not IndyCar, if SRX, we're going to keep using SRX. If SRX wants to run at Atlanta, they don't have to do it in June with NASCAR. They can do it in July. They can do it in August. They can do it in May. They can do it in December. That confused me. There was a deadline, Prime said. What would happen if they didn't sign? And then Prime claims that there needed to be a deadline set so NASCAR could prepare for 2025. It's kind of a fair point. You know, at some point, something has to be signed. The calendar year 2024 was the real deadline. Like, that was like, if they don't have anything by then, they're screwed. And honestly, it's a fair point. NASCAR needs to prepare how to financially distribute, how to prepare for the teams and how many charters and how many teams have this many charters and all the different parts of the deal. I mean, if there's 100 pages, I think that's a fair point, I would say. But the gun to the head thing, that's where it gets ugly. That's where it gets like, what are we doing here? So Kessler says that's what happened, right, in reference to the gun to the head. And Prime just said there was a deadline. Not the most confident response. Kessler said what would happen, and then just some very vague answers that are, yeah, not pretty here. And then we got some legal stuff down here. Something about impeachment and ordering the jury to not weigh Scott Prime's testimony as much. Okay. Yay, legal stuff. Okay, here we go. Bob Jenkins. We're on to Bob Jenkins, owner of Front Row Motorsports. Excuse the language at the bottom of the screen. I can't control what other people tweet. And I also can't, I guess I could don't look at it. Front Row Motorsports, Bob Jenkins is testifying now. He has revealed some numbers. Front Row loses $6.8 million per year. He has never made a profit, nor has he ever taken a salary from FRM. He had 9 unsponsored races this year where he ran his own companies on the car to avoid a blank car. I believe that's like Long John Silver's and stuff. Pre-Next Gen, he spent $1.8 million per year on parts. With the Next Gen, he spends $4.7 million. It costs $30,000 to repair a non-wrecked race car each week because the nose and tail must be sent back regardless to the vendor, and teams cannot repair it themselves. So the Next Gen car, you got the third-party sources, and they have to be within a certain spec. And if they're illegal, if they're counterfeit, if they're bent the wrong way, you get a massive points penalty. You get a massive fine. It hurts. It hurts a lot for these teams. We've seen it by like every single team, it seems like. Well, the whole point of the Next Gen car, the way it was promoted, was to be cheaper, was to be a better deal for the teams, to be more cost-friendly. If this is true, $1.8 million per year on the Gen 6. $4.7 million. That is nearly triple. Now, I think it was said that in the early days of the Next Gen car, it was going to be a financial burden until they figured things out, until everything kind of got settled. The early days of the Next Gen were going to be a financial burden. So maybe that first year, maybe that second year even, I don't know. Like these cars usually have an 8-year lifespan, I think, if I'm thinking correctly. Like the Gen 6 was 2014 to 2021. That's 8 seasons. So, but we're on year 2022, 2023, 4, 5. We've completed 4 seasons. If these numbers are still the same, yikes, that has got to hurt. And that's a lot of teams taking that hit too. And not every team spins the same. But, okay, thank you, Cloudy341 Blade, for the correction. 2013 through 2021. So that's 9 seasons. Oof. All right, here we go. Bob Jenkins has been on stands on why he keeps going when he has lost $16.3 million the last 3 years and about $70 million in the last 11. We are sitting on something special. I really feel like we're making progress. It's a fair point. I mean, Front Row's now at Tier 1 status with Ford. They've won a non-super speedway race, which for them is a really big deal. They won on a road course with McDowell. They've won races and multiple seasons since the 2020s. Like, that's a really big deal for that team. So he could be right. They have really young drivers right now, which is a big deal. So he could be right. NASCAR took many shots. Okay, so here's what we were talking about earlier. The jury. The jury is the biggest part of this thing. You got to appeal to the jury. Once again, I'm not a legal expert, but you got to appeal to the jury. That's a common known thing. Well, the jury appeared to dislike the line of questioning, and Jenkins came off as a sympathetic figure. That is a huge blow to NASCAR. When one of the people suing you for being a monopoly and antitrust and all that, when they come off as a sympathetic figure, that's not good for you, NASCAR lawyers. That's not good for you. And then there was something about the judge. I can't remember. Like, there were rules set that they couldn't ask certain questions. I think it was about Bob Jenkins' outside ventures, business ventures. Like, they couldn't ask about his restaurant business or something. And the NASCAR lawyers asked him about the restaurant business. And so essentially, they got some violations. And if they got more violations, it would result in significant consequences. What those consequences are, I have no idea. I think Shannon said, like, potentially they could get put in timeout or they could get, like, kicked out of the courtroom, the lawyer who asked it. So that seems like a big deal. Some more big numbers. Matt Tiff contract was for him to pay $2.1 million for the Cup ride, plus $500,000 to Lakeway Christian Schools, which Jenkins founded. Deal never completed after Matt Tiff. Of course, his career was cut short due to some medical issues. Chandler Smith paid $1.5 million for the truck ride. Ford paid team $1.175 million in 2025. So Jenkins also testified after discussing with many team winners, none of them were happy to sign the agreement. Jenkins called taxation without representation. And then, okay, so this is another thing. Bob Jenkins points out this is not about bashing the France family. He says that in 22 years of being in the Cup Series, he's never made an operational profit. But he said something about that the France family has done a lot of great things for NASCAR in NASCAR, but that this charter deal was not one of them, which is why he is upset and is in this lawsuit. Long John Silver's. Oh, yes, there was a potential merger. We don't have time. I wish I had more time here. There was potentially a merger. So when 2311, when Michael Jordan and Denny Hamlin were coming into this thing, there was potential that they were going to buy stake into Front Row Motorsports, where the three of them, Bob Jenkins, Denny Hamlin, Michael Jordan, were going to co-own Front Row Motorsports and maybe potentially rebrand. Well, the deal fell through at the last minute, and NASCAR tried to argue. They found some text that Denny Hamlin, like, forced the deadline really quickly, and they're like, hey, if you're so mad about that, why aren't you mad at Denny for doing that? Something like that. Here it is. It was about Jeff Dickerson quotes. That's what the judge was mad about. My bad. Long John Silver's is a fast food seafood restaurant, Cloudy. Okay, we don't have time to read all that. This was funny. All right, back to... We'll pop over here in a minute. Just wanted to take him... Jeff Gluck's doing great coverage, by the way. Oh yeah, I forgot Steve O'Donnell. He did his testimony. F1 stuff. F1 stuff. Steve O'Donnell says NASCAR lost $55 million on the Chicago street race through 3 years and $6 million on Mexico City. Numbers Jeffrey Kessler appeared to ask for to suggest to the jury that it would be hard for a competitor to even exist given the financial hurdles. We already talked about that. Yeah, they need to figure this thing out. They need to go quicker. The judge said the case wasn't being helped by witnesses who wouldn't acknowledge or answer direct questions on the fact. So also Judge Bell, he did not like that some of the questions were not being thoroughly answered and that he would start forcing if it came down to it, I think. I think we're on to today. Good news about Stuart Friesen. He's walking again. This is unrelated to the lawsuit, but this is kind of a big deal because of his bad accident. But he's walking again, so that's really good news. Okay, so we're on to today. We have finally made it to today. O'Donnell completed his testimony. Steve O'Donnell. O'Donnell says that Andretti talked to them about charters at one point with Honda. That feels like a big deal. That would be a really big deal. What? What? Are you kidding? Michael Annett died? Wow. That's sad. He's only 39. Raced at JRM, won a bunch of races for him. Wow. That's sad. I mean, wow. Obviously praying for his family. I mean, that's insane. That's super sad. Yeah. Oh, that threw me for a loop. Yeah, so there was a heated moment in the case where O'Donnell was saying something, Kessler didn't like the answer, and so Kessler kept raising his voice and was like yelling at O'Donnell, and O'Donnell kind of had a good response, a quick little, not jab, but he was like, I can hear you fine. Like a funny moment for O'Donnell. So then Kessler the next day apologized to him and said, I want to apologize. I'm from New York. I tend to get a little bit emotional about things. And then here we go. Non-compete stuff. O'Donnell and Yates. We already talked about that with Honda. Cost caps. We don't gotta get into that tonight. Oh yes, this is okay. This makes no sense. Back to SRX. O'Donnell says SRX alarmed him from an IP standpoint when Chase Elliott raced a Napa-sponsored car with a stylized 9 on it. Let me pull up this picture. Okay. Gotta be really careful on how you type SRX, guys. Yeah. What is he talking about? What? Do you see the Chase Elliott 9 in that 94 right there? Do you in any way... Let me pull up a picture on my phone, okay? I'm going to go to Coda. I know I got a good Coda picture in here of the 9. Like, right up and personal with it. So get yourself a look at that 9. All right? And get yourself a good look at this 9 right here. Do those look anything alike? Like, what? Even if we come to these, do you see the same 9 that I do? Uh, 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 I don't know what that one was about. Okay, cool. Oh, yeah. Okay, so this is when we get to Heather Gibbs. Heather Gibbs, daughter-in-law of Joe Gibbs, mother of Ty Gibbs. I believe she's a co-owner in Joe Gibbs Racing. I don't know what her other roles are. But she took the stand. She talked about Joe Gibbs Racing, the charter deal. It got pretty intense, not in terms of like a intense, but just emotionally intense. Her husband, Coy, did die suddenly in 2022, I believe, or 23. But so here we go. Heather Gibbs took the witness stand Friday, saying she wrote the letter to NASCAR about how important evergreen charters would be after a meeting in which Steve Phelps told JGR leadership that their spending was reckless. So right now the charters are on like 7-year terms. So it's like every 7 years they're up for renewal, where if they're evergreen, they last forever. They're permanent charters. And that's one of the main points that all the teams wanted, but they didn't get. And that's what has led us to this. Heather Gibbs said it really bothered me that he shared that and calling their spending reckless. So, yeah. Heather Gibbs said it was very upsetting when NASCAR gave its apparently final deadline to sign the 2025 charters in September 2024, and that Joe Gibbs called Jim France and said, "Don't do this to us." She said that Jim France responded, "I'm done with the conversations," which kind of fits the narrative that Jim France, iron fist, like if it's not his way, there's no way, essentially. So, yes. So yes, and then this is Heather Gibbs on the deadline to sign. Gronk, I swear, get off. Nobody wants you. Quote, everything's going so fast. That's the legacy of Coy. That's the legacy of JD, both of Joe Gibbs' sons, who they were high up in the team. They were very important to the team. If we don't take the payout they are offering, we can't keep going. It's like you have a gun to your head. If you don't sign it, everything is gone. The gun to the head analogy, back by a team owner. Yeah, this is not good. We heard that analogy a couple of years ago or last year when that initial deadline came out, and now it has been put forth into a courtroom by a team owner in front of a jury, testified. That feels significant, in my opinion. Once again, I do not know much about legal, but from me, an outsider, a perspective, someone who could potentially be on a jury one day, we could all be on a jury one day doing something like this. That just feels like, yeah, it's like you have a gun to your head. If you don't sign it, everything is gone. And then JGR leadership opting to sign the charter. We said we have to sign this. We can't lose this. We have too many employees. I did not think it's a fair deal for the team. So kind of similar to what Childress said initially right after it. He has employees he has to take care of. Well, JGR had employees they had to take care of. They didn't think it was fair, but they had to do it. Yeah, I don't know how this came up. I don't know why it came up, but I hope it was relevant, because making a widow relive a traumatic moment of her husband dying just does not, I don't know, that just doesn't sit right with me unless there's some relevance there. So, yeah. Yeah. Anywho. Jim France said, if I wake up and I have 20 charters, I have 20. If I have 30, I have 30. Once again, Jim France not being painted in the greatest light throughout all of this. Going back to Steve O'Donnell's testimony, he said he had never had worse meeting than he had with Curtis Polk. And this is kind of painting Curtis Polk. Curtis Polk has not really been talked about in the greatest light from NASCAR. It seems like he, once again, is an intense figure who is very vocal about what he wants. It seems like he is a very intense individual. Him and Jim France are very kind of the extreme on both ends. In terms of like NASCAR versus 2311. So it says that Polk tried to kick him out of his own NASCAR meeting, which that's super intense, man. From there, we knew we weren't coming to them from a place of respect. And that's where it kind of gets intense, I feel like, with all the text messages and everything from Steve Lauletta saying Jim France dying is the best answer, or the NASCAR executives then being super mad at team owners and saying that Richard Childress needs to be taken out back and flogged and saying F Curtis Polk and all this. So that might have been the moment where all respect was lost on both sides maybe, or maybe the respect had already been lost from the team's perspective. They thought NASCAR was lowballing them and they were being screwed. Well, then this was the moment potentially where NASCAR lost the respect from the teams, and that's where they started to clash, like really clash. Michael Jordan's testimony. So Michael Jordan took the witness stand. He said NASCAR or 2311 sued NASCAR because he felt that someone had to step forward and challenge the entity to understand that it is a real concern from our aspect in terms of charters not being permanent or having better economic terms. Michael Jordan was questioned about his upbringing by... This is really funny. This is really, really funny. The team's lawyer asked if he played for any teams other than the Chicago Bulls, and he said, I tried to forget, but I did play for the Wizards. Obviously, Michael Jordan, he retired once, then he came back to the Bulls, won some more championships, retired again, and he came back to play for the Wizards. I don't know why he picked the Wizards, but he did not do too hot in Washington. Safe to say. If there's any knock on his legacy, which there's not really, if we're being realistic, I think people would say it was the Wizards stint, but I do not. I don't knock it personally. NASCAR's lawyer asked Michael Jordan if he remembered telling Jim France that he felt that the charter system was, quote, a great service to the teams, as he apparently had recounted in pre-trial hearings. The lawyer also asked Jordan if he realized that the Francis built Talladega. What does that have to do with anything, man? Congrats, Francis. You made an iconic racetrack. You've made a lot of iconic racetracks. No one's trying to take that away from you. No one's trying to argue against that. What does that have to do with this case? Someone smarter than me explain it. But here's ESPN talking about it before we get copywritten. Michael Jordan concluded his time on stand with his lawyer trying to make the jury understand that 2311 being profitable in some years and buying 3 charters doesn't mean that 2311 feels the system is fair. The Race Team Alliance's Jonathan Marshall is now on the stand. So NASCAR's Larry Butterman asked Michael Jordan if he knew the Francis built Talladega, that Jordan testified that he went to Dega as a fan when he was a kid. Butterman's point was whether 2311 is giving proper credit to what the Francis have done for NASCAR. Once again, it makes no sense. Of course, the Francis without the Francis, we're not here talking about NASCAR because they invented NASCAR. They built this thing up. But, okay, they made Talladega. Congrats. I have great memories at that track. That was the track I went to at college. That was the first race that I covered. A lot of people have great memories at Talladega, and yes, we have the Francis to thank for that. What does this have to do with the monopoly stuff? What does this got to do with the antitrust stuff? Cool. You made Talladega. Okay, then Superstar SRX has been popping off a bunch of random tweets. Obviously, that's the Monopoly Man from the board game. It looks like a Simpsons episode. Let's go through this. That was from 3 hours ago. This is from November 21st. This is a scene from, what's it called? My Cousin Vinny. More Michael Jordan quotes. Owners were browbeaten for so many years trying to get change and just could not get to that point. I wasn't afraid to challenge NASCAR with a lawsuit. It needed to be looked at from a whole different perspective, and that's why we're here. Michael Jordan, okay, we already covered that. Michael Jordan's taking shots at Denny Hamlin. Gronk, nobody loves you. He drifted towards Cale Yarborough, the original number 11. Sorry, Denny. That's funny. Ha ha ha. Denny Hamlin drives the number 11. He roughly attends 10 to 12 races, but watches the others on TV. I don't miss a race. I will never pass up an opportunity to bring it up. I've stood next to Michael Jordan. It's cool. It's super intimidating. He has a secret service that scares you, but it's cool. Okay, we don't need to talk about that anymore. I just love bringing it up. Anyways, there was a discussion between me and Denny about being successful. People who know me know I like to win. Yes, we saw the documentary, Michael. And I will pursue anything to win and get a third charter improves our chances to win the championship. MJ says he was very invested in the sport and there were few charters available at the time. He says his role is primarily his relationships from his NBA playing days, citing McDonald's and Upper Deck, who are 23XI partners. MJ says he found the nature of the business to be unfair. As he continued in the sport, he made multiple references to NBA business where limited options for entry franchises increase value. He said NBA is 50.9% to players when business is good and 49.1% when it is not. MJ said both the league and players share responsibility of growth, and I think that's fair. Like, without superstars in the NBA, no one's going to watch, so it's a fair point. Why did he not sign it? He didn't think it was economically viable for us and got legal advice that the no-sue provision was an antitrust violation. So that might be a big point in this thing. If that is indeed an antitrust violation, that could be a key point in this case. MJ said he wants equal partners. I never thought we would get that basketball gets, but we thought we could get closer to 45%. MJ says he wants to push NASCAR to be better. He says the drivers and teams assume most of the risk while NASCAR sits in Florida. I never saw Jim France drive a car or risk his life. Give a little more credit to those who put their life on the line. Spicy. Hey. Cloudy 341 blade, I would have gotten in trouble, so that would not have been worth it. But I get, we're not getting into that today. No insurance, no union. That's what I thought. That's where I thought the sport needed to grow. Obviously, he came in just a couple of years ago. MJ takes exception. This is something that I did not see coming, but the DAP, the driver ambassador program, where the drivers get, like, if they get a certain amount of hours or if they get the most hours over a certain term, they get like a bonus, but it's to the driver only. He takes exception, and a lot of the team owners have taken exception to that. That was out of nowhere, as I said. Takes the drivers away from promoting the team's initiatives and only NASCAR initiatives without compensation to the team. So only the drivers get it, and they're promoting NASCAR things, but not the teams. We want control over our intellectual property for our own benefit. Fair. And then Butterman said, thank you for your time and thank you for making my 9-year-old think I'm cool, because he talked to Michael Jordan. Jordan to Butterman, who normally wears sneakers with a suit. You're not wearing your Jordans today. That's all right. That's pretty funny. Oh, yes, we had protesters. Guys, we had a protester today outside of court. Everyone walks out of the courtroom, and look at this. NASCAR, your fans deserve better. We had a protester. We have reached protest levels. Wow. That's wild. That's crazy. So Judge Bell is not confident that this thing can be over by next Friday. And then, okay, so yes, Denny Hamlin told the fan that said, NASCAR, your fans deserve better. Denny Hamlin told the fan, you're right. All right. Okay, and then on the other side of the sign, it said, our sport used to be great. We had a protester. Michael Jordan said he invested $35 to $40 million in 23XI and also paid for the $28 million charter from SHR. Jordan isn't a day-to-day role, but he can obviously help land sponsorships. He's more or less a fan and financial support, and that's pretty fair. He's got a lot of money, so fair point. Protester again. We already talked about that. John Marshall. I gotta go here in a minute, guys. So I believe you need to read this. George wants my opinion. We'll end on my opinion. How about that? Unfortunately, we will not get to this. But everyone go to Shannon's Twitter here. She knows what she's talking about legally. Okay. What is my opinion? What do you think? I don't know who's going to win this thing because I don't know how court works. I don't know how any... There's too much. I'm not even going to make a prediction because I don't know. I don't even know. It's all based on the jury. What do I think? It sucks that we're in this situation. NASCAR has not been painted in a great light, especially Jim France. On the 2311 side, Curtis Polk has not been painted in a great light. Do I think NASCAR is wrong? That's such a direct question. I think in some aspects they might be wrong. Like the whole gun to the head thing doesn't feel right. And some of the things they said behind closed doors that got exposed, that was not right. In terms of the business deals, it seems like the teams didn't get everything they wanted. But I think some of the NASCAR executives, they tried their best to kind of be a bridge between Jim France and the teams and try to get them a better deal. But Jim France didn't want that. That's what it appears right now. But I don't know. Once again, I think both sides are right in some areas and wrong in some areas. And that's a very boring, very basic answer that you don't want to hear. But what do I think of the France family? Yeah, they built Talladega Superspeedway back in 1969. So because of that, we should say only positive things about them. No, for real, though. I mean, the France family has done a lot of great things for NASCAR. Without them, we would not have NASCAR. But that doesn't mean they're flawless. That doesn't mean they're perfect. Like, back in May, when we did that thing talking to fans about the state of NASCAR, the state of the sport, everyone in there agreed that we love NASCAR. For the most part, we love NASCAR, but that doesn't mean it's perfect. Something can be fixed here. Something can be fixed there, but they're still doing really good at this, this, and this. That's kind of where I stand on it. Like, I love NASCAR. I'm never going to stop watching NASCAR, but that doesn't mean it's flawless. That doesn't mean it's perfect. I'm going to call it out. If they do something dumb, I'm going to say, hey, that was dumb. Or, hey, if something needs to be fixed, hey, you should go fix that. So, anyways, I got to go now. So, Cloudy341 Blade, thanks for being here. George, thanks for being here. David, everyone else. Jamie, hope you had fun at trial the other day. Jamie was at this trial, not Jamie's own trial, I don't think. But Jamie, hope you're doing well. Everyone else, I got to go watch UNT. The University of North Texas could be in the playoffs.